your throne. Into this world you have come. You offered up your life, the debt you paid, it was not yours. Your grace abounds to me. Your grace abounds to me. Jesus, in you I find all that I need. A gift I could not earn. Your open arms are undeserved. Enabled by your grace, now to live is Christ alone. Your grace abounds to me. Your grace abounds to me. Jesus, in you I find all that I need. All powerful, all glorious, there's nothing like the name of Jesus. All powerful, all glorious, there's nothing like your name. All powerful, all glorious, there's nothing like the name of Jesus. All powerful, all glorious, there's nothing like your name. Your grace abounds to me. Your grace abounds to me. Jesus, in you I find all that I need. Your grace abounds to me. Your grace abounds to me. Jesus, in you I find all that I need.
Hello, Life Church, and welcome to another Wednesday evening interactive service. This is the second one we've done where we pose some questions and we really look forward to you giving some answers and giving some feedback. So thank you to everybody who responded last week. That was fantastic. That was a good start. And we're hoping that tonight, once we do a recap of what we've been looking at on Sundays and we ask another couple of questions, there'll be more interaction and more feedback on this service as well. So the first one we had last week, last Wednesday, was looking at the previous two Sundays where we looked at Nehemiah chapter 1 and chapter 2. And this week we're looking at what we looked at last Sunday, which was Nehemiah chapter 3. And if you haven't seen that message, it's on our Facebook page. It's also on our website. If you want to go and check that out, please feel free. But if not, I'm going to do a quick recap, and then I've got, just like last week, 2 questions for you that we would love you to respond to. So the recap on chapter 3 is this. Nehemiah has gone down to Jerusalem with letters from King Artaxerxes, and he shared the vision with the people there of rebuilding the walls and rebuilding the gates. And the response has been, yes, let us rise and build. And Nehemiah's response to that is, yes, we will do that. And they start the rebuilding process. And then if you look at chapter 3 from start to finish, it's an incredible chapter because basically it's a number of verses almost repeated all the way down, just with different very interesting names. And it shows you that each person was gifted to build, each person was building in their own section, and they were building together under a great big vision. And so they're the 3 points that we brought out. Point number 1 was that everybody that was building on the wall or on the gates, every one of them had a gift to build. And we relayed that into our own context in church and said that whenever someone commits their life to Jesus, Jesus invests gifts in them, spiritual gifts that's going to be a blessing to the church or even beyond the church. And so if you're reading this and you haven't seen the message, if you're a believer, God has given you gifts and he wants you to use those gifts for his kingdom. And so that was the first thing we brought out in chapter 3. The second thing was that each person building stuck to their section. And we said that that was really important because the people who were working on the gates didn't go over to another gate or didn't go over to the wall. Those that were working on the walls weren't necessarily going to work on the gates or over into another area that they thought they just wanted to work in. And we made the analogy that if I'm a minister of this church, then I'm not necessarily going to be gifted in every area of ministry within a church. I think it's a travesty when we put that kind of expectation on a minister. What we said is that if you have a gift in a church, for instance, if there's someone leading a youth ministry in the church, they would be best, if they don't have the gift, they would be best sticking away from kids ministry or staying away from leading worship or staying away from an evangelistic ministry if they don't have that gift. Likewise, I'm not going to jump into something just because I have a position in church where I'm not gifted. And what we said was, if you have a gift and you have a role, if you marry those together within a church, then blessing will happen. And we've said it many times, we'll probably keep saying it, if you get the right person in the right place at the right time doing the right thing, good things happen, blessing happens. And so everybody that was working on the wall, working on the gate, stuck to their section. And it's important for us in the church to stick to the section God has given to us within our gifting, not within our position, because a gift should only be married to a position. A gift should only be joined to a position. We don't have a position just because a position's empty or just because we have friends in the church or family members in leadership or people like us. It's not about that. It's about, do you have the right gift? And if you do, let's marry that with the role and blessing will happen. They stuck to their own sections. And thirdly, what we said was that God has a global vision for the church, and that is that every single local church has the same global vision in the sense of no matter where you come from, what your culture is, what your background is, what your locality is, what your language is, whatever tribe, tongue, or nation you come from, the general vision of the church is that the church is a movement of disciples making disciples. That's the general broad stroke overseeing vision that God has given the church. However, we did come to the conclusion, and we do believe, that every local church has a specific function within that locality. And you'll find different churches have different strengths. For instance, you may have a church that's just incredible in worship, and they're perhaps even influencing other churches in worship, or they're very strong with evangelism, or they're strong with teaching, or they've got a fantastic kids work. Now we want everything, don't we, in a local church? But actually God gives a different local vision for every local church. And we shared a little bit of the vision of Life Church, and if you want to hear that, go back and listen to the message. And so based on those three things, and based on that very brief overview of what we looked at last week, I have two questions, alright? Two questions. The first question is this. If someone in church has a gift, and I want to say thank you to Fergie. So Fergie's no friend of ours, and we had a little back and forward on our Facebook post on Sunday. If you want to go and have a look at that, it's really helpful. Great questions. And this is coming out of that. If you have someone in a local church, say Life Church, or if you're from another church, say your church. If you have someone in the local church with a gift, and they're not yet in a role, they don't yet have a part to play, they're not necessarily leading anything yet, how do we get that person with a gift to be in a role, in a position, to be fully functioning in the gift that God has given to them? How does that happen? Does it depend on leadership seeing it? Does it depend on a church voting it in? Does it depend on that person coming forward and saying, hey, I've got a gift, I'd like to share it with the church, or I'd like you to commission me to fulfill that gift outside, or whatever it may be? How does that process start, and how does it go through to the point where that person with a gift is fully functioning in that gift? I'm just very mindful, many of you may have a gift and you don't have a role in church. How are you going to get from the place you are right now to the place where you are fully functioning in the church? Can you drop a message, your wisdom, your testimony, your thoughts? What do you think needs to happen in that process? Alright, that'll be really interesting to hear what you think about that. Second question is this: if you have a gift, and even if you're not in a position or role at the moment, or you are, maybe you're fully functioning in your gift, how should we get to the place where we know that we are fully functioning to the best that we can be? So let me try to explain that in this way. If, say, I have a gift of evangelism, just so happens everywhere I go I'm able to strike up conversations with people, talk about Jesus, and people give their lives to Jesus. Just say that as an example. Should I think, okay, God's given me a gift of being able to communicate His message very easily, very naturally, supernaturally with people? Should I just rest on the fact that God has gifted me and leave it like that? Saying, okay, it's a gift of God, it's nothing that I have done or earned or anything like that, that's fine, I'll just carry on as I do? Or is there a place for development? In other words, is there a place where I need to continue to train and develop in the gift that God has given to me? Or do I need to formally train in the gift that God? Should I go to a school of evangelism, for example, and learn some more? Should I have an accountability partner, say a minister in the church, or say someone else that I can be accountable to with the gift God's given me, so that I'm not being lax or being foolish or going off on a tangent when I shouldn't be? So that could cut across every gift you can think of: worship, kids ministry, teaching, whatever. How can we get to be the very best that God has called us to be with the gift that God has given us? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. What do you think we need to do? Do we need to do nothing and just say it's a gift of God, I leave it there, I just trust in His anointing and that's it? Or do we develop? Or are we accountable? Or do we train? What do we do? Alright, so 2 questions, there you go. Someone in a church isn't in a position yet, how do they get there? In other words, who's accountable for that? And secondly, if you do have a gift, how can you live to the very best potential in your church, in your ministry, in your life with that gift? How can you do it? Answers beneath. It would be fantastic to hear from you, and it's going to encourage every single one of us. Someone may be watching, listening, thinking, I've got a gift, I don't know what to do. Should I approach leadership? I don't know what to do. Or I've got a gift, I'm just going at about 80%, want to get to 100%, what should I do? Is it about spending more time with God? I don't know. So all of these things, if you leave an answer with us, that would be amazing. Let's continue to keep this as interactive as we can. Alright, if you're watching this and it's not Wednesday night, you can still comment. Please do. Okay, bless you. And I'm looking forward to seeing your comments.